Okay, good afternoon. I am Anto Budiarajo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is a show that we do every Monday at 3 o'clock to help us all get us through the pandemic and also to figure out what building automation and control is going to be like after the pandemic, the other side of all of this. The profiles for everybody is on mondaylive.org if you want to.
Yeah, I got to rush. I hate to do it. 14:04, man. I hate to do that.
Can you all mute, please? Right. That's it. Okay. So the panelists are the list of panelists and the profiles are on mondaylive.org. Just a reminder that the views expressed here are personal, not of any company or organization. Please do post questions and comments on the chat and on the Q&A. We'll try and get to them. And if you can complete the survey at the end, it'll be helpful. And this deck, as well as I think another deck that we'll have, will be on mondaylive.org as well. So our agenda today, we'll spend 10-15 minutes talking about what's going on in the world, news and trends. And we'll spend the most of the time today talking about the future of distribution post-COVID. This is a discussion that we've been sort of having on and off over the past few months, and it's an important one in terms of the future of our industry. Few slides just to get us going. Roger is sort of noting what Amazon is doing in terms of putting warehouses everywhere, and I'm not quite sure what this is all about. I'm sure he'll explain in a minute on the right-hand side. Things to do with enabling remote work. Ken is focused on tossing transformation torches. I'm sure he can explain all of that. And John talking about the flexible space, the future of flexible space, and a couple of other subjects. So those are the slides that we have for today. And throw it to the group. Roger, do you want to start with your
Yeah, sure. There's just a couple of things. I mean, obviously we've talked about a lot of times about the whole move of things moving to suburban areas. It's just like the JLL report saying a lot more things will move out from central resorts. Doesn't mean to say things are going away. In fact, some of that's positive. And Amazon trying to compete with Walmart there just means that there's opportunities for the industry, obviously, with you know, controlling and looking at distribution centers, and I'm sure a number of those will be you know, buildings that have been changed, as we talked about before, with J.C. Penney and things like that. The other thing there just was a quick throwaway, really, was the, you know, it always brings back my faith in human beings, that comes some changes and some issues, and suddenly, you know, the human beings are very innovative, and there's a whole range of companies now working on remote communications and working at home. And I think that's the sort of thing, hopefully, we can get into our industry as well.
innovation?
Yep.
Very cool. Ken, do you want to talk a bit about the issues coming up, the October issues coming up?
Okay, I think it dovetails real close to what Roger is saying. It's just a whole bunch of opportunities opening up. I'm calling these transformation torches that we're kind of throwing up. And the significance of them is that the transformation, it's not just a new opportunity. It's often a new industry, a new way of doing things. So I think we have to just incredibly open our minds. If we thought our minds were open, we haven't even guessed as to how far we have to kind of follow out some of those thoughts. So we've got a bunch of a potpourri of a bunch of directions things are going, even some that are, you know, is that building automation or not? It doesn't matter. It's part of the transformation. It's part of the transformation that's going to affect us.
John, do you want to make some comments on the slide that you put up, the links?
Yeah, so just the first one, I attended a webinar with JLL, and they showed that progression from, you know, there is significant short-term impacts. and how they envisioned it coming out. I thought it was well done, and wasn't I guess in my terms, overly optimistic. It seemed very realistic based on the types of things they were seeing. The other one, a theme we've talked about a few times that keeps popping up in the news, different places, right? Indoor air quality for these buildings that have been shut down, right? And the potential impacts to not only the shutdown, but the poor maintenance that many buildings have experienced, and occupants being more aware of that. And then finally, just, this, what I consider is a concern, this rolling financial potential, burden that's coming, that's been held off by different types of financial programs, but, Marriott under a lot of stress on a lot of their hotels. So also relates to the travel topic. So.
Great, thank you. Opening up for just general comments and stuff that you're seeing out there.
So I heard today that Florida and Indiana have both decided to take the wraps off COVID. So they're allowing normal operations within the state. Has anybody else heard that confirmation? Heard that on the radio? And if that's true, that's a good sign. And there was also a comment that in general, that the southern part of the country has sort of progressed through a lot of the case increases, and they referenced Arizona being also true in that category. Tracy, I was curious as to whether that's what Arizona you're seeing out there. Is it in fact the caseload is decreasing again, or is that not the case? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it has been the case. Arizona really got, kind of get off the naughty list there for a while. But the recent news reports that I've heard in the last couple of days are showing how many states are now actually increasing in number of cases, and some of the numbers are going up. And I was just going to comment, I've had the occasion and reason to be sort of out and about a little bit, been into the office a few times, kind of normal life sort of things. And I was noticing how much busier, like, the roads are even. People are definitely out and about. We had a reason to go to our local mall here, and interestingly, a lot of the businesses that really kind of crashed and burned at the start of the pandemic have been replaced by kind of non-traditional businesses, even within the mall at this point. There were very few unoccupied spaces. They seem to have done a pretty good job about being creative and bringing other types of brands or other brands in that you wouldn't normally see in a mall. Which is good, and good or bad, depending on your viewpoint of this. The mall was actually quite crowded. So, it's good for business, but it's bad as you're walking around there thinking about what's going on a little bit, and then coming home and seeing the stories that the numbers are rising, and I can't remember, 30-something states or something at this point again. So
Were people wearing masks in the mall as they were going around?
It's still mandated in our town, all public spaces right now.
Yeah.
So, and for the most part, I think, most of the people were pretty good about it. There, you could see a few that were clearly kind of bucking the order a bit, or working around it, kind of wearing it down low and breathing through their nose. So, yeah. Which I think is kind of funny, but my wife and I are commenting, it kind of almost looked like, holiday season crowds at the mall. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, I heard two economic statistics today as well. One was that they're expecting a growth in the GDP for Q3 of around 30%, which is big. And then the other statistic is that the number of new business startups in this last month is up significantly. So those are two very strong economic data points that are, so yeah, I think things are changing, but the mix, like you pointed out, maybe the mix is also changing in terms of who's going in the malls and so on. So I think it's a vote for optimism, at least, if nothing else. If the economy is recovering
Europe's
that quickly,
going the
that's
other
good.
way.
Yep.
Europe's going the other way, where they're going to regional lockdowns, and we're going through a second wave of COVID in virtually every country. So I think France, Spain are way off the Richter scale, and UK is now potentially going to lock down London now again. And they're just doing it regionally as opposed to countrywide. But most countries are struggling with a second wave now, and you know, putting in more restrictions and closing things earlier. And I think it could be something to do with the schools going back, and whilst the kids don't get it, you know, they bring it home and share it amongst the family.
Yeah, I live in Asheville, which is a tourist town, and the tourists are back. I've been driving around a little bit, and lots of people downtown walking around, and most of the restaurants seem to be busy, and thankfully most of them are wearing masks, so that's good. And the other thing I noticed, I saw, was that New York has sort of done this sort of given the streets over, pavements and streets over to the restaurants, and they've decided to make a lot of that permanent, which I thought was interesting, whatever that means.
You know, that's funny. I almost did a slide on this. There are some things that have changed for the pandemic out there that are becoming permanent. It's funny that you use that word. In Ohio, I just read that they passed a bill to, they did a temporary order to allow cocktails and alcoholic beverages to be delivered, you know, through that kind of a service, and they just voted to make that permanent. So, and that's not the first thing like that I've seen. Like the street one was another one. So part of the adaptation that I think we're starting to see out there is this more long-term flexibility or creativity in some of the ways that businesses are doing business, which is positive.
Bob just commented on the Q&A that in Florida, the numbers are not going down, but they're opening up everything anyway. So that's right.
And that's kind of how Arizona seems to be. And based on the news story I saw, I would say that's fairly true of a lot of the states at this point.
Yeah, Texas is the same. The restaurants can go to 75%, I think, or 80% now, occupancy as of last week.
Great.
It would seem that there are lots of early indicators of a potential second wave or resurgence or something as people go back to their normal lives. Schools are back, holiday seasons, you know, that's, people are just tired of not being able to gather, I think, and visit. So it'll be, I don't know what the plan is. I doubt anything will change much until after the election, perhaps, but at some point it looks like we're headed towards having to deal with it, like Roger was saying Europe is dealing.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to our main topic. And I'm going to bring our two guests today, Greg Barnes and Jack Berryhill, onto our virtual stage, and invite them to introduce themselves, make some comments. They have a little presentation, and then we can have a discussion about distribution again. Hi, Greg.
Hey.
Hi, Jack. Over to you.
Well, we appreciate you asking us to join today. It's been very informative listening to the conversation. Obviously, kind of unparalleled times right now, so all of us have a lot of concern, but hopefully we can find opportunity, you know, in the problems that we're having with the virus. A lot of crazy stuff happening.
Yeah, you should be able to share your presentation if you want to go ahead and do that.
Okay, so I just hit share screen.
Yeah, share screen and run your deck.
Okay, can everyone see?
Yep. Put it on presentation.
Is it better?
Yep.
That's perfect.
Wonderful.
Jack, are you online also?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure. Please jump in if you have any input.
Yeah, did Daryl, is Daryl in attendance?
I don't think so.
No, I can bring him on if need be. But let's start.
Yeah, not required, so he'll join if he can. So wanted to, got just a few slides. I'm going to blow through some of these, but just to kind of set up. I think many of you are very familiar with activelogix, but there may be a few people that aren't. We've been around since 2002. The company was started by Jack Berryhill. We're in the Carolinas, and we consider ourselves a technical distributor. We distribute a variety of products that you're familiar with in the industry, from Vicon, Distech, Honeywell, Linkspring. And our prime, most of the time we're selling products and services to systems integrators, some controls contractors, and we do some unique things, some special things that I'll share with you today. We think is going to serve us well in these trying times as a distributor specifically, and that we do because we're highly technical and we've had the capability of both doing development as well as programming, which some distributors may not do. We think we kind of fit a niche that will help us get through this unscathed. It's trying times, and a lot of our customers, our contractors, our systems integrators, and end users are obviously very concerned, and some are finding opportunity, in this time. So when I started generating the presentation, I thought, activelogix has been sort of transitioning into this IoT space and for a long time. So some of the things that we've been doing now are allowing us as a distributor to also provide services and maybe technical support, remote services that maybe some distributors are not used to doing. So as a technology company, it's really transformed our distribution business. We want to take advantage of that. Back in late 2016, early 2017, we had an IoT conference in Charlotte. And some of the slides that you'll see here are came from that conference. We had Harbor Research involved as a keynote speaker, and I think they helped put some of this together. So I want to give Glenn and his team credit. But as you see in this particular slide of our industry in the distribution channel, you see activelogix as a player. We serve as a traditional distributor, but we also have in the value-added applications over time, we've built things like our Periscope dashboard. We've offered services both to our systems integrators and contractors, which would include training, SkySpark development, SkySpark support. So I think, from our perspective, that support and that technical focus has allowed us opportunities that maybe some traditional distributors might not have and might create some concern given everything that's happened. We recently, obviously in the last year or so, also teamed up with Totem and really begun, providing those types of services too. In kind of a second slide that was formed back at that presentation, you'll see us kind of at the top positioned in both the collaboration with a lot of different types of companies and with a tendency toward application complexity being more on the complex side. So we've done things like created products. I'll show you just a couple of quick examples for OEMs. We've done business with Amazon from a perspective, so we have some knowledge of maybe what they're doing or have done, as well as a variety of other types of entities that are very progressive. Sorry. As we all know, our application, what we do as a distributor is we sell these days parts from companies like Tritium and Honeywell and Distech, et cetera. But those parts are used in a variety of applications, from very simple, let's pick up alarms, to very complex. One of our key customers is the city of Raleigh. And we do a variety of things, from monitoring electric vehicle charging stations and solar farms, to the simple blocking and tackling of temperature control, IT security, physical security, et cetera. I think that this development has allowed us to design unique experiences, which in this day and in this particular day and age, some of the construction work may slow down. We may not have as many parts moving into facilities or through contractors, but there are people that are companies that are looking to do unique things that are associated with COVID, from monitoring fresh air to maybe using analytics to gauge both problems and opportunities to save or to improve the work environment. We talked about our ability to, to develop products, and we're seeing our Periscope application is actually, we're seeing increased sales with people, again, seeing this as something that they can do remotely, and make a difference when maybe they can't do some of the physical things they've been doing in the building, to save energy, to reduce cost during a kind of a trying time. And we talked about some custom stuff that we did. I won't go into this as an example of circuit breaker panels that we did for Schneider a long time ago. So in our distribution chain evolution, we've had the opportunity to integrate to a variety of products, specialty systems. We've had the ability to work with our customers, both end users and contractors, to help them get that data to the cloud. And we've been able to create, using a combination of technologies, unique customer experiences. And we're finding that that those areas are still areas that people are spending some money right now, because they're having to make changes to deal with some of the complexity of the environment that we're in. We also see that in the distribution business, that the vendor landscape, is changing. We see controls companies acquiring each other. We see equipment manufacturers getting involved. Obviously, there's been roll-ups of both service companies and distributors. And I know that part of the topic today is distribution and how that's changing. I know that we're all familiar with some of the things that have been going on in the space, such as Kelly acquiring some of our sister distributors. We've had conversations with, not necessarily with Kelly, but we've had conversations with industry experts that have had questions about that sort of thing going on. Amazon, Walmart, those types of things that were kind of the precipitous of this meeting, I believe. There's definitely a business model there that we believe could affect us in a pretty dramatic way, and look forward to that discussion. We're also seeing some of our partners focus on cloud services. To give you an example, obviously you're familiar with Honeywell, and they are really focused on developing, and that would include on the Honeywell Tritium side, all the companies that they purchase, developing services from a cloud-based perspective. And we believe and hope that we'll be able to be the distribution focused entity that moves some of those services to market for end users. Any questions so far? Pretty boring stuff.
Oh, it's good.
Sounds good. Let's just get through the presentation. And
Okay, I believe this is the last slide. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah. So we're seeing with in the COVID times, what we're doing as a business and encouraging our customers, our systems integrators primarily to do is we're doing more and more remote engineering. We're putting things in the cloud that might in the past have been on site. We still have some issues with some customers that have to do with high security environments where something may not be able to be remote. We have upped our game in terms of secure networking products, products like Tossibox, services like Totem, a variety of products out there in the market that we feel now is the time to pursue those. And we think that the customers are open to receiving those products and services. We believe that a big part of today's business is not just blocking and tackling with control systems. That's very common in new construction and obviously still happens in existing buildings. But we think that the integration piece of it will have more value and more opportunity for us as a business here short term. And obviously technology continues to change rapidly. It's going to be our focus to understand that technology and be able to serve our systems integrators with products and needs and training. That's it for me. Any questions for Jack and I?
Greg, this is Roger. Yeah, good question. I mean, it seems like you're changing from, being, providing products through distribution and things to becoming more of an MSI. But are you going to go beyond that and start offering some of the services themselves as well as doing the integration? You're going to provide energy management, and are you going to provide space management and a whole range of other things that are behind that?
So I'd answer it like this.
Could you just stop your presentation so we can see everybody? Thanks.
Sure. So that's a great question. I would start by saying, in today's world, right, with fairly trying times, I think that all businesses are doing what they have to do to survive and be profitable. We've been fortunate in that we haven't had to lay anyone off at this point, through some of the things that we're doing. We've always considered ourselves a very technical company that could support systems integrators in using and deploying and servicing this type of technology. Often you have to use it yourself in order to be good at supporting it, right? So we look for opportunities that we can deliver prototypes, that we can create a scenario where maybe we convince an end user that they should be using this, and then we often bring our customers in. And there is a fine line. I think that we've been successful for the most part in that we have really strong relationships with our integrators, and they understand and trust that number one, they can't know everything and can't get to everything. And I think they also understand that when we develop customers with a holistic solution, that those customers will need their services too. Like I said, we don't go out and put VAV box controllers, and program those things and run wire and stuff like that. So there's, in today's world, maybe there's not as much opportunity as there has been, but we embrace our contractors and try to move business forward for all of us. It's the best way for me to say that.
Okay.
Hey, Greg, this is Arno. Are you looking at or seeing anything in the area of software as a service, or are you offering anything as a service, software as a service models, or is that moving in any of that direction?
I think the answer is yes. The devil's in the details. I think in some cases it makes sense for us to use products that already do that, where we can get in and get out and make money and have that recurring revenue. We're not doing as much development on our own for a lot of obvious reasons, with the economy and such. So, but we would probably consider some of those opportunities. Most of what we're doing is, with partners that have that service in place, and we're just tagging along.
Hey, Tracy, maybe we can pull you into this discussion because you're obviously in a distribution, although slightly different. Do you want to chime in and sort of comment on?
Sure. It's interesting, when I was listening, a lot of the strategies and adaptations that I'm hearing Greg talk about are very similar, right? We provide those same value-adding services that he listed. We're always looking to kind of evolve. IoT is a good example. We've gotten much more involved with IoT products and services here over the last few years. Distribution in its traditional sense, even before the pandemic, was already sort of under siege a little bit in terms of commoditization and the ability for manufacturers and the desire for manufacturers to go direct as opposed to any kind of two-step distribution. So, the writing was on the wall already a little bit. So, we've done a number of things over the years, including, adding a UL panel shop, for instance, and things like that to try to help move this along. I think that the lines are blurring between system integrators and distributors these days. It sounds consistent with what I'm hearing here a little bit. And in particular, in that MSI role that Roger mentioned, we've found ourselves in that role a few times. And that's a good thing, because I think just the nature of controls these days in terms of open protocols and multiple manufacturers and multiple manufacturer products, I should say, you need somebody there to almost referee a little bit between what's going on with each of the different installers and contractors and integrators throughout the process. And if it's a multi-building facility or opportunity or project, then that's even more true as things start to roll out there. So very consistent with what we're seeing for sure over time. And I think the jury is still out a little bit for us if the pandemic is really changing that trajectory for distribution or not. Our business is up significantly, and we certainly have what I would call some pandemic accelerated opportunities, but not necessarily ones that were created by the pandemic. But I don't know that I've really detected a whole lot. Obviously, when you stop doing business, that impacted us. When there was nothing going on, we saw the difference a bit there. Now, we were fortunate that, some of that also created opportunities for other things to sort of backfill, right? While people were out of buildings, there was some work that was a perfect time to get, integrators and contractors in to do work. And schools is a good example of that. But that's very short term and doesn't, again, in my mind, kind of change the trajectory of distribution, which is getting much blurrier, in my opinion.
I can agree with that. I'll give an example. We did recently respond to an MSI type role to a school district, and after we were selected for whatever reason, I'm going to say the scope sort of changed in that through conversations as we educated the user, they they decided that there was an opportunity with the pandemic, with buildings not being occupied, there was an opportunity to go in and do things that had to do with analytics that that they had not planned to do, but repurpose some money for us to go in and do some commission, retro commissioning, if you may say, and so there was some real good opportunity for us. And now with a successful pilot, there's opportunity for our partners for us to put that in the specification, for us to have a contractor do it as part of their controls project, or a commissioning agent, separately. There's a couple different ways that obviously some of that could happen. So so even though an odd situation, we had an opportunity that presented itself and moved forward quickly and positively.
So do you think this, as this evolves, that maybe the big four will be squeezed out from the project work, where the MSI role develops more, the system integrators become more competitive? In the UK here, for instance, 75% of the market is system integrators. Siemens are pulled out, don't do projects. Honeywell and Schneider kind of left at the top end a bit, and really Johnson's are minimal. So I'm just wondering whether that will be a big game changer for those four as well.
I have an opinion on that. I can, and we've talked about it here in this group a little bit. You can start to see some of the trends with the big four getting much more software savvy and interested in that sort of a role, while at the same time, companies like Greg and Jack's company and my company are also getting more involved with software solutions and providing front ends and things like that. And at the same time, you've got people like Elper here on the call who are extremely innovative in the hardware arena and willing to give away their designs and their hardware in order to get to the good stuff, the data and the recurring revenue and the software part of it. So if you look at the direction of all of those, the only thing that a lot of us can't overcome is the security that comes along with doing business with a big company like that. But I think that there is going to be an impact, and Greg mentioned some of the impact in his presentation in terms of consolidation and acquisition. There's more and more and more. We've seen an increase in that kind of interest and activity as well. And I think that's going to be the response by the big guys to this as much as anything. It won't be the traditional where they're leading in the innovation necessarily. I think they're acquiring the leading innovation, and they'll have to go that way.
Seems to happen a lot.
Yeah. So,
big guys acquire the good stuff.
Yeah.
So my question to both of you guys around the MSI, because it seems like the MSI is still an evolving concept. And so you've got larger systems integrators who are out there positioning themselves as MSIs. And then Greg, activelogix has gone out and pursued some MSI work. Tracy, you're acting as an MSI. So you got this sort of competition of who's going to win, if you will, the battle for being an MSI. Is there an advantage fundamentally for this as a distributor? Is there advantages to distributors being MSIs versus larger systems integrators trying to be MSIs? Do you see any particular advantage that way?
Sorry, I don't mean to hoard the time here, but just quickly. So I think that there is, Steve, and there's a fundamental reason for that. Mm-hmm. And that is that as independent distributors like our companies are, we represent a range of manufacturers. And at the same time, on any given day, we're talking to dozens and dozens of integrators and contractors, right? Mm-hmm. So the independent view that we have and just the underlying approach to controls, where we're looking for, sort of the best solution for the customer, as opposed to the manufacturer that we happen to be aligned with per se. You know, many of us carry competing lines even, right?
Yeah.
So a big part of an MSI role is that integration, that independent sort of view, and to keep everybody honest so that end customers don't get locked in to a particular solution that really leaves them handcuffed, right? So as an independent distributor, it's just the natural approach that we take to those kinds of roles. Greg and Jack, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
Yeah, I think you stole my notes, but that was, exactly. I would. We use the term product agnostic when we talk to a client. We're talking about the best of breed and you know what fits this particular situation the best. And so we're not, like you said, we're not really locked into trying to, you know, use the same product like one of the big three might, right? They have to kind of shoehorn things in, and we can go out kind of on an open market type mentality and pick the best.
Hey, Greg, sorry.
Sorry. I wonder how your relationships with the companies whose products you distribute are changing as you take this independent role in working with the customers.
I don't know about Greg and Jack, but it sounds very similar. I mean, in that our roles as traditional two-step distribution, where our primary value proposition was the fact that we had inventory and somebody could come in the front door and pick something up, is really, you know, gone out the window. And going back to what we talked about before, we're now you know, playing separate and participating in separate roles on these projects. So it's hard for the big guys and the manufacturers to really view us as just as a distributor any longer. It really, our business models have evolved in this industry. They've had to, and some of the manufacturers that we deal with have a hard time dealing with that. I don't know if that's the same with you guys or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, they're all vying for loyalty, right? I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the business.
Yeah.
I think that we found, you know, obviously, if you're going to if the perception is happens that you're competing with your customers, you know, you better have some really good relationships and some longstanding, you know, the ability to talk freely with each other in order to work through that. I would say in some cases we're really fortunate that, you know, we have some longstanding relationships with contractors. I think that our contractors, you know, they would prefer to have been the company that went in and convinced a customer to do, you know, ABC controls. But I think they actually see it as broadening their opportunity when we go in and we convince the end user that they can use ABC controls or DEF controls, and here are 2 qualified or 3 qualified contractors that can serve them. The best systems integrators know that they can eventually win that business with their performance. You know, it's the weaker ones that are, you know, oh, why did you bring 3 guys in? Because, you know, they may not have as much much to offer. So I think our strongest customers really appreciate that, and they see it as widening the opportunity for them. Sometimes we reduce their risk. You know, as you can imagine, when, let's just say, a specification, you know, or a draft, something comes to market where they understand what they need to do, they feel comfortable being able to call us and say, you know, do they really want this or this? Is this okay? And so I think it reduces their risk and allows them to feel comfortable, you know, and
we also speak their language better, right?
Yeah.
Coming from a place of knowledge. experience.
Talking about speaking the language, one of your slides at the beginning, Greg, was labeled IoT opportunity, right? So it looks like you're sort of thinking about this as IoT. We've had numerous kind of discussions. I've had one-on-one discussions with many on this group about IoT. Just sort of wondering, and IoT in terms of the startups, Silicon Valley trying to do a particular type of sensor tend to go direct. It's another way I think about it. So I'm wondering whether you're sort of thinking about what we're doing as IoT, or whether you're trying to sort of go after these sort of new style of IoT that's not really building control and automation as such, and bringing them into what you're delivering. Just sort of wondering with the dynamics of all of that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting, question. I would say that, we think of IoT as, gathering data that has relevance, and, we can make decisions for and with the customer to save energy, improve the environment, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're pretty open-minded as to, trying to find the best way to get that data, and helping the customer understand, the cost of doing that and the benefit of doing that. And, so working through, when you're working through that with an end user or even a contractor, you build some trust there, and that you're both striving for the same result, a positive result, whatever that might be. And so we're not as hung up on the technology. I think the vendors are more, concerned about their channels of distribution. They want you to be loyal to them. And but when you walk in with a big opportunity that is the right thing to do, most of the vendors will step up and say, okay, we appreciate you bringing that to us. Yes, you're not a distributor of our product, or, maybe, but maybe this one makes sense to work with you. And we might bring in someone they trust locally to help do that. Would you agree, Jack?
Yeah, I wasn't sure I understood the question. Was it more geared towards bigger players coming into the market, or?
It seems that there are a lot of small players doing IoT, doing very, very specific things like, monitoring the soap dispenser in a kitchen, in a bathroom, for example. Very, very sort of point solutions. I'm wondering whether you're being drawn into integrating those into the broader BAS kind of control systems. It's probably another way of thinking about it.
Yeah, actually, I think we have. We've seen a number of those types of, one of the slides Greg shared talked a little bit about some of our OEM relationships. And I'd say that some of the smaller guys tend to gravitate to us for some reason. And we find ourselves developing some, we use the term blue ocean type of solutions, where, they're in a very unique space of some sort, and we wind up doing something specifically for them. That's typically an IoT play.
And it usually involves a project at the same time, not just a development. We have done some pure development, but usually that development comes with an opportunity, a business opportunity. Let's call it a project for activelogix or some of our partners.
If I could add to that too, one of the things that we've noticed in that arena there, Anto, is, historically building automation, the only places automation was applied was around HVAC and lighting and, a couple of the core kind of applications. And now quote unquote IoT is automating a lot of other things in buildings, right? And as an independent distributor, we don't align with just HVAC necessarily. We look at building automation as a whole. And I would think it's safe to say that anyone in our role, it's our goal to increase the amount of work that we're able to provide, the amount of services that we're able to provide to any given application or project. So we have a natural tendency to sort of migrate towards IoT. And to me, quite honestly, it's all IoT. It's a bit of a mindset change that I think the industry needs to go through. It's not just controls, anymore. IoT, the focus is on the end result of the data and what you can do with that, and control happens to be a part of that, but there's so much more to it now. So it's just an evolution that our industry overall, I think, needs to go to, and companies like us who are used to working with smaller manufacturers and innovative kind of suppliers are just naturally going to be at the forefront of that always. So,
guys, I want to, if I could, shift the discussion a little bit to the sales side, because I think Greg and Tracy, what you both hit on with in terms of the MSI role you're seeing opportunities for as a distributor, and that agnostic approach, that makes a lot of sense. But historically, I think distributors from a sales standpoint have had their sales team out signing contractors and supporting those contractors, right? But if you're going to do the MSI thing, now you're having to shift some of your sales efforts to the end users. And so how is that affecting the way you think about sales, how you recruit for sales, how you manage your sales process? Really like to see some discussion around that.
Sure. I guess I would say that most, if we get involved in, let's call it MSI work, that's typically one of the owners. Our sales team's focused on driving contractor business for the most part. We need those contractors bidding and working their relationships and moving product into their relationships. I see it personally as a more of an opportunity for us to develop a customer, at a higher level, where we can sell multiple products into that customer, and it brings value to the 2 or 3 systems integrators that we may get involved, or the owner gets involved. Sometimes it leads to a new systems integrator. And so ultimately, most of the work, we say MSI, a lot of the business is not MSI work. There is a nice chunk, and it can be profitable, or it can make you pull your hair out. But it is a portion of the work. There's a lot of blocking and tackling that goes on, where valves, actuators, relays, panels, controllers are sold. And so when we approach some MSI work, it's usually with a larger customer, maybe multi-site or campus. So we see opportunity if we get them sold on this and have a successful prototype. Then there's going to be 14 or 30 or 60, 8 buildings that come along down the road to get integrated, and there'll be product on those too.
Greg, I want to kind of shift this a little different direction. You listed 2 of your major clients were Amazon and Walmart, and I guess we're all assuming the traditional relationship. But have you explored sort of non-traditional relationships where you see them becoming part of your distribution channel, basically using their expertise in distribution, which is kind of more far-reaching than what we're traditionally used to? Have you kind of crossed the floor and started exploring some of those opportunities?
I'm sorry, was that a question directed at me, Ken?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. I may have misled you or said something the wrong way. We have done business with Amazon, not from a facilities perspective.
Okay.
So traditional, let's say MSI work, there's been a lot of people that have been involved in some of that. So I actually do see those Walmart and Amazon as potential competitors long term, not customers. From my limited experience with Amazon, I think I can probably say this without, I think they were, they have the ability to try a lot of things in order to learn themselves. So they're very interested in understanding the market, understanding the players, understanding the technology. Whether that turns into anything that's really competitive or not, we can all probably debate, but I think they've been trying a lot of different things. So I'm not sure, what their play in our space is, other than, what we might think of as traditional distribution. So
They
as
have,
a,
they have pirated an awful lot of people from our industry. I assume
Yes.
you're aware of that, but some very good people have gone across, especially to Amazon.
can you
Because
name some of those people? For me?
I can, yeah, in my network, because they come over to the Automated Buildings Network, and
Okay.
they come with their backgrounds, and they have 10, 15 years in our industry, and they've just started.
Yeah.
And their basic job at our Amazon is to try and integrate what it is we're doing with Amazon. So
Okay. Yeah.
it's another piece.
My experience with their team, the people that we met, I was very impressed, both with their industry knowledge. I can't say that I ever really met what I would call a controls person at the time, but
Mhm.
it was more focused around energy. And but we have had contractors over the years that have been putting stuff in Amazon, and so they're learning from all that. Yeah.
Ken, are you asking in regard to Amazon as a customer and user of control technology, or as a reseller and distributor of controls?
I was trying to define that blurry line.
Yeah.
That's between those two. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just a matter of time before Amazon takes over what used to be the traditional kind of lobby and call desk role of distribution in our industry. You think about what they're doing and their ability to ship same day or in a few hours in some cases. In the comfort and ease of which people are able and used to buying product through Amazon, especially around more commodity type products where there's not a lot of technical support or advice or selection that's required. Why wouldn't they be a player in this? The only thing stopping them is our volumes are not as high as other verticals that they've gone after so far. It's just a matter of time, in my opinion, before we start to see all of that going on and happening.
I think it goes back, as you said earlier, Tracy, was that, really a lot of the products in our industry now are commoditized. It's the software, the tools that are the differentiators.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, the controllers, how many IOs it got, and how big is it with the tools. And I think as that steps on, I mean, surely part of what you're doing is almost moving some of what you're doing now almost as a web shop anyway, where people are just ordering sensors or things off your website as opposed to the traditional way it used to be, which kind of lends itself to the Amazon approach. And certainly Alibaba in China have taken some Tritium people and other people to actually start looking at getting engaged in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the commodity side of it, but I struggle with seeing, an engineered system being sourced through an Amazon or Alibaba.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be interested,
It may turn into a situation where we're that engineering
Yeah.
role, and then we just go and buy it from Amazon.
Yeah.
And do it that way.
So we coming to the top of the hour. Maybe Tracy, if I can ask you to make some brief closing comments, and then I'll ask Greg and Jack to do the same, and then we'll do a wrap.
Sure. It's been interesting having listening to Greg and Jack, and it's very consistent with our experience and sort of our path and journey as a distributor in this industry. As I mentioned before, I think the role of distribution was changing before the pandemic hit, and there may be just a little acceleration or permission given for some of that evolution to occur now. That might accelerate what we're doing, but I think that we're going to see that traditional distributor where the primary value is inventory gone here before much longer. And what I do believe the value proposition is for us, we're talking to multiple manufacturers and multiple users every single day, and formulating a better understanding and view of what the needs are and what the possibilities are in terms of some of the value-added services that we can add whether it be programming or UL panel shop or, over and above the traditional distributor value proposition. So I think we're kind of uniquely positioned to evolve some of this into that. But distribution as we know it, I think it's got a expiration date on it for sure.
Thanks. Greg, Jack?
I agree with everything you said. And I guess I would add on the acceleration piece. There's things, interesting things like training. For example, we had, some in our business model, we had some training content. We were doing localized training, and that's completely changed. That's completely out the door. So that's probably all I would add.
One thing I wanted to mention earlier that I should throw out there in that terms of like the master system integration role or that, I never have seen that as competing with any of our integrator or contractor customers. The stuff that we go after is not bid stuff that they would normally see. We're developing new applications and new verticals that we've got, like some of the retail stuff that we've done and pulling that stuff together. We've moved lots of manufacturers' products and in high volume that they never would have seen for any of that. So I don't think that we do well competing directly with a contractor or system integrator, to be honest. I think that and Greg and Jack, you can probably chime in, but it's always our goal to make a bigger pie, not to reslice the pieces. So that is a role of distribution I see going forward, quote unquote distribution.
Okay, we do need to wrap this up to keep to our 60-minute commitment. And so thank you, Greg and Jack, for joining us and contributing, and thanks for our in-house expert on distribution, Tracy, and for everybody else and for the attendees. This will be on YouTube by morning, and I thank everybody, and see you all next week on Monday Live. Bye-bye.
See y'all later.
Enjoyed
See
it.
y'all later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Greg.